Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Currently Speaking, the podcast of the Current Consulting Group. I'm Bill Current, founder of the Current Consulting Group. We'd like to invite you to visit our website at currentconsultinggroup.com or go to our YouTube channel and find past episodes of Currently Speaking. Let your friends and colleagues know about it. Follow us, like us, help us build up our viewership. We'd really appreciate that very much. Today, I'm going to be sharing some of the surprising results from Current Consulting Group's 27th Annual Drug Testing Industry Survey. As many of you may know, the Current Consulting Group has been in business for 27 years. This is our 27th anniversary coming up in September. And every year since year one, we have been conducting a survey of the drug testing industry. And it's become quite a popular event every year when we release the results at NDASA's annual conference. And so I'm going to share some of the surprising results from this year's survey of drug testing professionals. Now, you may also know that we do a second survey every year. It's the Employer Drug Testing Survey. That one is in process right now, and it will be released at the SAPA conference in October of 2025. So we released the industry survey at the NDASA conference, and we released the employer survey at the SAPA conference. I'd like to also acknowledge the sponsors of this year's survey. It's not possible to do this type of a project. It's very time-consuming, very expensive. Not possible to do it without the support of some very generous and helpful companies in the industry. So I'd like to list them. That's Abbott, ClearStar, DrugPak, Premier Biotech, Quest Diagnostics, Wanfo, and NDASA. Those are the companies that helped sponsor this year's survey. So thank you to those companies for their generosity in supporting the survey and getting the word out so that we get as many people as possible participating in the survey. Now, I'm going to talk about three trends in particular as part of this presentation. I'm going to talk about pre-employment testing, oral fluid testing, and the marijuana issue. Now, there are some people who believe that pre-employment testing is kind of going the way of the dodo bird. The truth of the matter is pre-employment testing is pretty much holding steady in 2025. About 26% of the survey respondents said that 50 to 80% of their clients still conduct pre-employment testing. That's up from 21% the year before, so actually an increase in that category. 39% said 80 to 99% of their clients still conduct pre-employment testing, and 22% said all of their clients screen applicants for drugs, which is similar to last year's result of 23%, but up from 19% in the 2022 survey. Now, additionally, 53% of survey participants said employers discontinuing pre-employment testing is not a trend at this time. And that's up from 49% who said the same thing the year before. Oral fluid testing, which has sometimes been referred to as the ultimate emerging technology or alternative testing method, may actually soon become the number one drug testing method. At least that's the trend that we're starting to see in our survey. A growing percentage of drug testing providers indicate now that they're selling more oral fluid tests, with 14% indicating that they've seen an increase in lab-based oral fluid testing sales, and 11% who said they are selling more rapid result oral fluid tests. In addition to that, a combined 21% said that they've seen an increase in the sale of both lab-based and point of collection or rapid result testing. Some additional interesting facts about oral fluid testing also came out of the survey. For example, 38% of survey respondents indicated that clients are more likely to add oral fluid testing to an existing program that already includes other testing methods, while only 15% thought their clients would switch entirely over to oral fluid testing. So 38% could see clients adding it to what they're already doing. 15% said they would switch entirely to oral fluid testing. Now, regarding the collection of oral fluid samples, 26%, these are professionals in the drug testing industry, 26% said their clients would prefer to use professional collectors, either on-site or at a collection facility, versus 19%, not that far apart, who said that their clients would probably prefer trained employees to perform collections on-site. In addition to all of that, 28% said customers would likely use a combination of professional collectors and trained employees doing collections on site. Now, even though oral fluid testing has been around for a long time, employers still have a lot of questions. So we asked, what type of information regarding oral fluid testing would be most helpful to you today? Keep in mind, these are professionals in the drug testing industry that are responding. 61% said they'd like more information about certified labs that are certified to conduct oral fluid testing. 51% said the availability of oral fluid devices. 45% said general oral fluid training and products information, the ins and outs, the basics. And if you go to our currently speaking archive at currentconsultinggroup.com or on YouTube, you'll find a whole series of podcast episodes that I did with Brian Feely, who's our executive vice president, on all kinds of aspects of oral fluid. We did basic issues, we sort of did mid-range issues, and we did some very advanced issues on oral fluid. So if you're looking for more information, you'll be happy with the podcast that Brian and I did. A lot of good stuff there. I can't remember, 16 or 18 episodes altogether. 45% said they would like help in advising clients on how to modify their drug testing policy to include regulated oral fluid testing, right? When the DOT oral fluid regulations become completely in effect because we've got certified labs, they'd like help in advising clients on how to modify their policy. And 41% specifically asked for help with DOT-specific collector training for oral fluid. Now let's switch to marijuana and drug testing. Of course, the issue of marijuana, the legality of marijuana, the restrictions that are placed on employers in many states that have legalized marijuana, that's a dominant issue. It dominates the attention of drug testing providers as well as their clients, the employers. Some employers have actually stopped testing for marijuana, but that trend seems to have leveled off. So in the survey, we asked, what percentage of your clients have dropped marijuana from their drug test panel in the last 12 months? 25% said that none of their clients have dropped marijuana. That's up from 22%. So a slight increase from 25 to 22%. The percentage of survey participants who believe the trend of employers discontinuing testing for marijuana will continue actually decreased from 70% to 62%. So it's still a pretty large percentage that believe that this trend of dropping or modifying your drug test panel regarding marijuana will continue. It's a smaller percentage now, down from 70% to 62%. When we asked why have clients dropped marijuana from their drug test panel, the responses were as follows. This is interesting. They believe it makes it harder to hire people, 49%. Now that's down from 62%, so some significant improvement in that category. To avoid the risk of legal challenges from an applicant or employee, 37%. That's also down from 44%. It's not legal to test for marijuana in my state or states, 27%, down from 34%. And then they don't believe testing for marijuana makes the workplace safer, 5%, down from 8%. Now, let me just comment on this issue of whether it's legal to test for marijuana. The only state that, for the most part, prohibits testing for marijuana is New York. And even if you read the Department of Labor guidelines on the whole marijuana issue and testing for marijuana, there are certain exemptions to that prohibition. For example, and it's rare, but of course DOT is unaffected by that. But also, if there's a reasonable suspicion of drug use in a post-accident situation, go and read those regulations from the New York Department of Labor. You'll see there's a tiny loophole there. But for the most part, New York's the only state that really prohibits testing for marijuana. There are some municipalities that have made it a lot more difficult, especially for pre-employment testing for marijuana. But generally speaking, you can test for marijuana everywhere, with the exception of New York. And even there's that loophole there. You may be thinking California and Washington. Well, those two states enacted laws last year that prohibit employers from taking action based on a positive result for marijuana from a test that's only capable of revealing the presence of a metabolite of cannabis rather than the parent drug. That's the case with urine testing. You're detecting the metabolite, the presence of the metabolite. But with oral fluid testing, you're actually detecting the presence of the drug itself, the parent drug. So in both Washington and California, well, let me treat them separately. In California, where the prohibition on taking action based on a test that reveals the presence of the metabolite of cannabis, which they call non-psychoactive metabolite of cannabis, that applies to both pre-employment and post-hire testing. And so in California, you can use oral fluid testing and continue to test for marijuana. The law doesn't prohibit that. Also in California, the construction industry is not part of that prohibition. So there's a big exception for the construction industry. In Washington, the prohibition only applies to pre-employment testing. So you can continue to test for marijuana with urine in Washington if it's post-hire, post-accident, reasonable suspicion, random testing, for example, but not for pre-employment testing, except, and you have to go back and look at their law because it's a long list of exceptions to that prohibition. So there are a lot of safety-sensitive occupations and industries that are not part of the prohibition on testing for marijuana in Washington with urine. And again, that only applies to pre-employment testing. So a little bit of news there to help clarify that one point. When we asked the question, why have clients dropped marijuana? 27% said it's because testing for marijuana is not legal in our state. That's just misinformation. Of course, it's legal to test for marijuana in virtually every state, New York being the one exception, and even there's some loopholes. So let me just add a conclusion to this. This is my opinion. I think drug testing is here to stay. I think how employers conduct drug testing is changing and is going to continue to change. I think we're going to see more oral fluid testing. I think we're going to see more point of collection or rapid result testing. I think we'll see even more impairment, non-drug testing impairment type of tests, or they may be drug identifying impairment exams, but it's not going to be a traditional drug test where you're collecting a urine sample or a hair sample or an oral fluid sample. It's a separate type of test that's designed specifically to identify impairment. We don't say that a drug test can identify impairment, right? Either scientifically or legally, we never make that claim. But there are actual impairment exams. I think we'll see more of that in the future, especially in the pro-marijuana states. Now, the negative impact that marijuana legalization has sort of inflicted on drug testing programs appears to be leveling off, and that may actually result in more drug testing in the coming years. So, some surprising results, some enlightening results from this year's 27th Annual Drug Testing Industry Survey from the Current Consulting Group. If you'd like more information about the survey results, this year's survey and past years, go to currentconsultinggroup.com. You'll find some archives on some of our past surveys there. If you're interested in being a sponsor of any of our surveys in the future, you can contact us at info@currentconsultinggroup.com or contact bcurrent@currentconsultinggroup.com if you want to reach out to me directly. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Currently Speaking. Don't forget to like us, to subscribe, to share with others, help us grow our viewership, and let us know if you have any questions. Thanks for being with us. Have a great day.